where do we start with the 12 disciples? Like, who are they?
Well, I think, to begin with, it is 12. And that was a significant number that Jesus, he wanted to choose certain men to be able to be a part of a small group that he could really build into and to train them and to see the world changed as a result. So
Yeah.
there was these 12 guys that he selected that he wanted to see the whole world changed. It's kind of a high calling.
Yeah.
As you may get to know, as you read through the scriptures, you'll realize that we get to know more about certain of them than we do others.
Yeah.
And so we'll probably talk about that some.
Where do we know of the 12 disciples, right? Some of them, there's an account of who they are in Matthew 10, in Mark 3, in Luke 6, and Acts 1.
Right? It's interesting, yeah. We talked about it in another podcast, how that certain of the Gospels are called synoptic Gospels, and then John, Matthew, Mark, and Luke are called synoptic Gospels.
Yeah.
And you'll notice in those references, we talked about the three synoptic. John doesn't list them.
Yeah.
So
that is interesting. Yeah, it's such a different type of book. And for anyone listening, if you do want to go check that out, if it hasn't already posted, it will be coming soon. But yeah, we have another episode on the four Gospels and how to unpack them. So Simon, Andrew, James, the son of Zebedee, and John, James's brother, Philip, Bartholomew, Thomas, Matthew, James, son of Alphaeus, Jude, Simon, and Judas Iscariot.
I think one of the cool things about when we look at the lives of the 12 is that they're all very different. So we see fishermen, we see tax collectors, we see other facets of life that all set everything aside and follow Christ. And I think that's a marker, or that's an image. I think Jesus, did that very intentionally. And I think he did that in part. It shows us today that it doesn't matter where we come from, what position, what job we're in. Being a disciple of Christ is a lifelong commitment outside of vocation, outside of family, outside of everything else. It comes down to, we see that at the beginning when he calls the 12 disciples, where he calls from all over. And it's the same today, except it's just a wider range of we call it disciples.
Right. And it's a call to everyone.
Yeah.
We all can be disciples. It's not like we have to have a special skill set or anything.
Interesting. I think that we should definitely touch on that. What does it mean to be a disciple? And what is similar about that from the 12 disciples, and what's different from our role in the faith and their role in the faith? That'd be an interesting place to go in a little bit. What else about their lives can we understand from Scripture? So let's talk about their names a little bit, because that was something that was confusing to me early in my faith, when one person was called three different things.
Yeah.
And sometimes they said, this apostle named this, also named this. And sometimes they just said another name, but it's actually this other person over. It's the same person. Yes. Like what's going on there? Why does...
I think names in the New Testament are a lot different than we have here in today's society. Usually we just get a name at birth, and we might get some kind of a nickname. My nickname is Nick, since my name is Nick. But
oh my gosh,
sorry.
That's good. That's good. We were talking about dad jokes earlier.
Yeah. Well, okay. There it is. I'm able to do it. So, in Scripture, a lot of times your name had some kind of meaning.
Okay.
It was given to you because of something they were maybe wanting to see, you become, or because, in Peter's case, we know Peter, he's a very famous one of the 12. Well, Peter in Greek means stone or rock.
Right.
And so he even used he said something, it became a scripture Jesus did when he named Peter. He said, upon this rock I will build this church, my church. And so as a result, he gave it some meaning. I find it fascinating, however, recently I've noticed that when Paul speaks about him in his letters, he never uses the word in Greek. He always uses the word in Hebrew, Cephas.
Yeah.
And so he still calls him rock, but I don't know why that's interesting, but it's interesting because it's language.
So Peter is a Greek name and Cephas is the Hebrew of that same name.
So his Hebrew name would have been Simon. So he was Simon Peter or Simon. I've forgotten the other word they use, but yeah.
One of the other episodes that the three of us will be doing is on the context of Jesus in the Roman oppression.
Mm-hmm.
Did that have anything to do with Jewish people also having a non-Jewish name, a Greek name? Like, is there a connection there?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I think absolutely.
Well,
The Roman government, like, giving them those names?
No, I think it wasn't so much Roman context as Greek, actually, because even during the Roman occupation, it was more of a Greek culture.
Right. Yeah.
So actually,
Rome was the empire.
Rome was the empire of the law and whatever, but the people really spoke Greek and they took on the Greek culture. So a lot of times it was because they were trying to fit in, instead of stand out. So they would want to have a name that others in the community would know them by.
Interesting.
So that
dates back to before the time of Christ, right?
Yes.
That's during the intertestamental period, that 400 years of silence. There's really a lot happening.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those things that was happening is they call it Hellenization. So when the Greeks were occupying Jerusalem and occupying Israel, the Jews began to kind of leak in and assimilate a lot of those Greek cultures. And the Greek names was one of them, and the Greek language.
So Peter, the Apostle Peter, through this, he has upwards of 4 names now? He's got Peter, he's got Simon, he's got Cephas, he's got Rock, which means rock.
Yeah.
How do we...
He's all the same guy.
Yeah. So one of the things that was helpful for me of why I thought it was important to be in here was to have that easily broken down and referencing. Because I found myself being like, okay, was this dude, this dude? And so I'm going back and forth between all the accounts. So who else has multiple names of the apostles? Like, just because I know a lot of, like, for example, James and John, right? So talk about James and John for a second. How were they called into the ministry and given these second names and all this stuff? Like, what's going on with James and John?
I mean, first of all, I want to point out, as we've already said, that 5 of them were fishermen. I think it's fascinating that Jesus chose to call fishermen to his group. He basically, fishermen are not known as being the high class people of society. They're the ones that are rough and tumble and they've been out in the sea and they're basically, not high class people. So he called the lowest of the low to be a part of his chosen group. Yeah. And it's fascinating to see that because then, Peter becomes the leader of the church. Yeah, it is. It is the same guy.
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, James and John were brothers. I think it's also interesting that he called people who are in the same family. Mm-hmm. So imagine
James and John were brothers.
Correct.
Right?
These two, yeah.
Yeah, and then they're called often James, son of Zebedee. Right. Like when in the moment when they're called, they're out fishing with their
father. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They're in the middle of work.
That's another cultural thing that I think we see a lot is there's no like last name type idea.
Right.
More like in Jewish culture, it was your name is James and your last name is son of your dad's name.
That's right.
So it's
genealogy was
like his
important.
Yeah. So James and John's last name was son of Zebedee, and that was the marker.
We call it a last.
Yeah. Or to call it a last name.
We had the function of last name, but I'm not sure it really operated.
That's the marker of family.
Right.
Carrying on a lineage.
Right.
So that's why we get son of Zebedee instead of James, like Jones or something like that.
Yeah. So they get an interesting nickname.
Right. Later on.
But it's not under the Roman context, the cultural context at all. It's a different situation. What's going on with their nickname? Because now we have a different situation for a disciple having multiple names, right?
So in that case, it was a particular instance where James and John were really upset and they wanted to call hell and brimstone down on some people. And so they were called sons of thunder. And they even use the word Boanerges. I can't even
Yes. Yeah.
And so it was a nickname that they got because of their zeal, I guess, for the way that they were following Jesus.
And Jesus gave them that nickname. Right?
Correct. Yeah,
right.
That's right.
And that's interesting to me because now we have two different situations with disciples getting called multiple different names throughout the text.
Yes.
One was a pretty common alternate name that they were recognized by. Another was like, hey, Jesus started calling me son of thunder. So
yeah, right. Give me some respect.
Right. Right.
I might call down thunder on you.
So is there anything else with their names? Like, not these two, but other people. So like,
sure.
Bartholomew and Nathanael, is that another situation with the Hellenization trend, if you will?
Yeah, that would have been.
I believe the same as with Matthew and Levi.
Yeah. So Matthew, Levi, Jewish name and Greek name.
Greek would have been Matthew, Levi would have been the Jewish name.
Interesting. And then who else? So like Jude and Thaddeus, same situation there, you guys think?
Believe so.
Yes. Yeah, the reason why we come up with these different names sometimes is because the lists that they're listed in often use different names. So it's not just that they were called differently in the scripture, but, well, yes, in the scripture, but in these lists.
And that makes sense because when we were talking about the 4 gospel accounts, those gospel accounts are written to a specific audience.
Yes.
Whether it's the intended audience might have been a Roman audience or it might have been a Jewish audience. So Matthew, considering a Jewish audience, is probably going to use their Jewish names. Right. So that's an important thing, is when we're reading Matthew and we hear him using Jewish names or
makes sense.
Or not using the Jewish names.
There's also, there are a couple Jameses in the list. So he had to make a distinction between them. So there's the use of James, son of Alphaeus, or this, younger James. So that helps.
James, the little brother of John.
That's right.
James, the son of Alphaeus.
That's it.
Yeah. Calling him younger James. That's I'm a little brother.
Oh, okay.
Right. And I get that because I feel like I can relate to him a little bit in this because, with my big brothers, when we were all kind of in middle school, high school together on the same campus, like, oh, you're so-and-so's little brother. You're Taylor's little brother. You're Marshall's little brother. I was just, I'm my own person, I swear. Yeah.
I don't know.
So then we have Simon. So we have 2 Simons.
And this one's called Simon the Zealot. Simon Peter and then Simon the Zealot. And Simon the Zealots were a whole group of, basically a political group, but they were like warriors. They were zealots for Israel and for trying to rebuild the Jewish kingdom. Right. At the time of Jesus, the Jewish kingdom didn't exist.
Yeah.
There were rulers and things like this, but they were not Jewish. And so these guys actually took it upon themselves to try to rebuild the kingdom.